Hi everyone, thanks for joining us again. Today's session is on delivering great presentations with PowerPoint. Some really cool stuff here. Looking forward to showing you what you can do with PowerPoint. So my name's Dan. I'm one of the co-founders of Dapt here in the UK, and I'm working with Steve on this presentation. So over to you, Steve.
Cheers, Dan. So first of all, let's have a quick look at the agenda for today. So what we're going to be covering, well, we'll have a quick overlook of PowerPoint in Microsoft 365. So today we're really going to be looking at essentially PowerPoint in the web app. So there's some nice features in there that we really want to show off. But again, as always, we have the desktop version as well, which also has some similar sort of features within there. So after those key features, we'll be looking at some elements such as design mode. How can we get really good looking presentations sort of created within PowerPoint? So how can we use some of the editing tools and the design tools to make some good presentations? We'll also look at practice mode. So really quite a nice feature, actually. We're going to go into some of the areas there. So looking at how we can practice our presentations to make sure we deliver them effectively, to remind ourselves to be doing all sorts of things that good presenters should be doing. And then lastly, we'll also be looking at PowerPoint Live. So there's different ways of sharing, obviously, presentations. The one we wanted to show you, which is a bit different from normal, is PowerPoint Live. It's a bit more interactive. So we'll be showing that at the end. For that, make sure you have your mobile phones ready as well, because we've got some interactive parts to there as well. So quite a good demo lined up for today on PowerPoint. Let's just jump into the demo now then. So if I get my screen ready. Great stuff. So one of the first things we want to really talk about is the PowerPoint on the web and the experience you get as an end user. So first and foremost, if we want to navigate to PowerPoint, obviously we have the app launcher in the top left of our Microsoft 365 area. And then we have the Office apps down here as we need to, so I can just click onto PowerPoint and this will take me into this screen here. Now what I have at the very top, if I could create a new presentation if I wanted to, I could just click on new. I could use some of the Microsoft generated themes as well. But I also have sort of Dapt Office templates as well for PowerPoint. So this is from our org assets library. And it's actually going to use sort of pre-branded, ready to go templates that we kind of want to use for any of our presentations that have all of the Dapt branding in as well. So we have that actually pulled through from the org assets library, which is really quite useful. Going further down, we've got some recommended presentations, so things that I've been working on. So you can see here that Dan and I have been working on the PowerPoint template, but I've also been working on the Viva Connections one there as well. And as I go further down, I can see a few more sort of good options here. So I can look at I can see any recent presentations I've been working on. I can also look at what's been shared with me, so any presentations that I've shared or have been shared with me, and also any favorites within there as well. You can see I don't have any favorites at this point in time, but what I can do if I wanted to, I can go across to one of the ones that I would like. I've got the little star icon there. I can add that to my favorites, and then that's always pinned there for me. So really useful way just to pin presentations. I've also got the information about that as well, the sharing options there, and a few different options if I wanted to download that, remove it from favorites, share it, or even go to open it up in the desktop application. I can do that all from here quite quickly. So once I do actually click onto this file, it will open up my presentation for me. So this is just a bit of an example presentation that we sort of put together. So again, quite a useful way of doing this. So I've got a home screen in there. So this is our default home screen. We're going to be doing a presentation on Microsoft Viva. And one of the first things that I want to do is get a sort of a nice agenda slide together. So I've put sort of an agenda slide with a little image in the middle, but it looks a little bit plain for me. So one of the things that I'm going to want to do is maybe have a look at some of the design options that are available. So if I click on design in the top of my bar and I click on designer, what designer will do is will actually generate a good slide for me. So it'll actually say, based on the image that you have in your deck, plus any text that you have within there, we're going to provide you with some suggestions to make your presentation look a little bit better. So I can go down here and maybe choose one that I like the look of. I think I'm going to go for this one here. And as soon as I click on that, you can see there that it's created a slightly better looking presentation for me as well. So I've got the agenda there. It's actually also added some options from additional text, so bullet points for me to actually add to my agenda. So quite a nice way of doing that. One thing to actually point out, so there's a little tip on this, if I did want to go to design mode with a slide that has objects on, so not just text but objects, I won't be able to use the designer for that. So we always want to make sure that when we're using designer that we're starting from just images and text. That's what we need to do to be able to use that bit of functionality. Okay, so one of the things that I need to do next is I want to make sure that I can actually put a bit of an agenda together. And one of the nice tools or bits of functionality we have is a dictation mode. So I can actually go to dictation mode. And as you can see, as I'm typing, it's going to be entering the text for me. So for example, if I remove this, it's going to be quite difficult to do on a webinar, but if I go option 1, for example, that would put in option 1 for me. I can then enter a new line and go to option 2. So a nice way to quickly get text into a presentation without having to type it. You can sort of talk around the presentation, all those key points, and that will actually put that text into there for you, which is a really quick way and really useful way of doing that. Okay, so I've got my agenda in there now. Again, if I just move on to my next slide. So the next slide I have is really a bit more sort of information in there. So about 6 key points on Microsoft Viva. So at the moment, I've thrown some shapes in, I've got some text in there, but it's a little bit sort of unorganized. One of the things that I can do quite nicely is if I select all of that sort of information, all of those components that I want, and then right click, I've actually got something here called Autofix. And what that'll do is it's going to try and smartly rearrange all of those objects for me into a nice sort of a nicely aligned layout. So again, if I've got lots of objects on the screen and I go to autofit, it's actually going to try and put that into place for me. Now, it's not going to be absolutely perfect. There'll be certain areas where I'll just maybe want to move that across, but it's pretty useful there. One of the other things you'll notice, Dan's actually just joined this document, so I've actually shared that with him using the share options, and I can see that he's in here as well. I can also go to his location, as we can do with a lot of the Office files that we have. And I can actually get Dan editing these areas to support me with the creation of these files, so I don't have to sort of exclusively work on something. I can actually get my team to support me in creating these files. So I can leave Dan sort of working away, making sure those 6 key points are done. That's a task for him to do. Following on from that, obviously, I would need to now build out the rest of my presentation. So what I need to do is I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to actually click on here, Reuse Slides. Now, this is really quite powerful. What I get here is if I go to Reuse Slides, I can actually browse files from my OneDrive, so any presentations I may have used before. But I can also scroll down and maybe find a specific presentation that I would want to use that's related to Viva. So I can see here I've done a Viva presentation. And I want to go in and add some slides into here as well. So I'm going to go in and add slide number 2 into there. I'm also going to add slides 4, for example, and maybe a few other slides that I would want to get into there as well. So let's just put a few more into there. Okay, perfect. So I've really quickly used a few tools there to build out a presentation, to make it look a bit smarter, to reorganize some shapes, graphics on the screen as well, use a bit of dictation to get information into my presentation a lot faster than I would be able to type it, and also reuse slides from other great presentations that we've used before. So again, I've been able to create this presentation very quickly without having to sort of start again from scratch or sort of start navigating around SharePoint and OneDrive for Business to try and find bits of presentations that I need from copying and pasting as an example. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that presentation now. I think that's looking relatively good. I can notice here I've also got a slide hidden, so I may want to just go and unhide that slide as well to make sure that that's showing and visible. So if I go back to the start, I now actually want to go and practice my presentation. So one of the things that I'll have over here is called Rehearse with Coach. So to get there, I go to the slideshow option at the top and I go to Rehearse with Coach. In the drop down, I've also selected body language. Now this is quite an interesting feature. What it will actually do is it will look not just at the way that I'm speaking, talking, making sure my tone's correct, making sure I'm not using too many filler words. It will also actually look at my body language. So am I looking at the camera? Am I using hand gestures? Or am I slouching? Am I standing up? All of those sorts of things. Am I the right distance from the camera, for example? They're going to be picked up here. So I'm going to make sure that's selected. I'm going to click on Rehearse with Coach. What that's going to do is, once I turn off my camera on my main webinar one, There we go. I'll just exit there and this goes to do that again. There we go. So Rehearsal Coach. Obviously, I can only use one camera at a time, and I can then start rehearsing on that as well. So now we can see that I am in the presentation. I'm going to try and do a few things here to make it really make its work worth. For example, I'm going to go and they'll pick up some of those filler words. I also may not be looking at the camera. So if I look away from the camera, that's going to pick up that I'm not looking at the camera or talking at the screen. I could also talk really fast. So I can sort of ramble through my words really quickly, maybe talk a bit too fast, and hopefully something will pick up that I'm talking too fast and it will tell me to slow down. So all of those sorts of great things it's going to start picking up. Okay, so once I'm happy with that, I can then click on to finish. So I can just go out and exit from there. And that will actually give me a report on how my rehearsal went. So I can see there that I spent 43 seconds rehearsing. I rehearsed on 2 slides. I can see the pace of that as well, whether my pitch was too low, monotone, how my average pace over time was. So you can see here that I started to speed up towards the end. I can set, again, make sure that my eye contact, that I'm looking at the camera when I'm doing this as well, making sure I'm keeping a good distance from my camera so I'm not too close and I'm also not too far away. So a few other sort of great things, great tools there for me to use. And if I expand on any of these, I can sort of get some information around that. So really quite a nice way to practice my presentations, to make sure that when I deliver them to an audience, they're going to be sort of spot on. And I've got the option to rehearse again, maybe picking up on some of those areas that I kind of failed on there. So that's, again, a really good way for me to be able to get that information out there. So once I've rehearsed that, I've kind of got that now down to a T. I'm happy that I'm going to be good at delivering this presentation to the audience that I have. I then want to go to present live. So still in the slideshow area, I've now got a couple of options here. So I could present from the beginning. I can also present from the current slide, and that will just start with the presentation as we're sort of quite used to. And I can share my screen within Microsoft Teams as well. I can present into Teams, so I can present in the current meeting that I'm in as well. So that's another nice way just to share the screen directly into Teams. That will actually do a PowerPoint presentation share rather than just screen share. What we can actually use here though is present live. So under the drop down options here, I can decide who my audience should be. So whether it's only people in my organization or anyone. So I'm going to click onto anyone for this one here. And then once I've done that, over on the right hand side, I'm actually going to go to the drop down and I'm going to go to present live. So this is the point where we need everyone to get their cameras out on their mobile phones. Once I launch this is actually going to bring up a QR code onto the screen and essentially allow people to scan that and join the presentation. So once we've got a few people in there, you'll see a couple of actions that are available, such as putting your thumbs up, all of that sort of great stuff. And then I can see that some people have joined. So when I'm ready, I'll start that presentation and click on Show Slides. Now what I have within here as well, because I've turned on captions, is the subtitle text or the auto caption generation as part of these slides as well. So I can actually put that on there for anyone who's hard of hearing for accessibility reasons as well. I can see some great reactions going off there as well. I also get some information about my my presentation too. So I've got things such as I can see 3 people have joined that session. I can show audience reactions or turn those off as well. I can also end the session there just by using those elements. I've got the controls here to move across. So again, if I want to use some of my controls, I can maybe highlight a few things and say today we're going to cover the agenda and I'm going to go through points 1 and 2. So I've got some nice controls there for me to use. And then when I'm ready to move along, I can also do that as well. So as we go through the presentation, we can talk about the various parts, so on and so forth. And then once I'm happy, I can then end that presentation as well. Now, some of the audience controls, as you'll see, so things like reactions, you also get to rate the presentation as well. So really quite useful to go live there. And it's sort of a nice way to get people to interact and to join. So I can just click on end that session now, and that's going to end the session for me. Okay, so once that's done, I'm happy with how that's gone. I'm now going to jump back to my main presentation and we're just going to look at some of the top tips for PowerPoint as well. So as mentioned, Some of the top tips that we have, for example, looking at using design mode. So adding text and imagery to the slide and then using design mode to come up with some nice slide designs is really useful and quite a powerful way of making great presentations. We've also got the practice makes perfect tip. So again, using the coach, rehearse your slides, use all of that AI to get a good understanding of, how fast you're talking. Are you looking at the camera? Are you a good distance from the camera? Are you using repetitive words? All of those sorts of things are really useful. We can also use auto tidy, so Autofix essentially to tidy up messy slides really quickly without having to drag and drop elements into the right position. We can use that as a starting point to save quite a lot of time, especially on any complex slides where we have lots of boxes and we want to make sure they're perfectly aligned. We can also go live, as we sort of just showed there. So again, different ways of presenting with PowerPoint, whether we just share our screen, whether we present within Microsoft Teams, or whether we go live. Again, lots of different options, lots of great interactions there as well. So again, consider the different options that you have there for going live. So that's the end of the presentation on PowerPoint. I'm going to hand back over to Daniel, who's going to go through some of the next steps. But we hope you found today useful. We hope it's shown you a few tools within PowerPoint that you maybe didn't know about. And we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, some really cool tips there for PowerPoint. Hadn't seen some of those before, so I'll definitely be trying those out. We're looking for feedback, so please scan the QR code on the page with your phone. We'll be entering people into a prize draw at the end of this series. So please feel free to give us some feedback, good, bad, or constructive, and stay in touch with our social media platforms as well. So next session up is on SharePoint, which is a big one. So join us for the SharePoint session, and keep an eye on our social media platforms where we'll be sharing our videos and telling you about upcoming webinars and presentations.